We've talked about before how there's a strong relationship between the tonic and the dominant, such as the motion between 5 and 1. One of those things that makes it so strong is this motion in the bass, as well as this leading tone moving up to the tonic, as well as this resolution of the tritone. Since that motion is so strong, what if we not only used it to get to tonic, but also to dominant as well? We would end up with a progression that sounded like this. So, in the key of G, G is the tonic and D is the dominant. We might, for the sake of this conversation, call D the primary dominant. In the key of D, D is the tonic and A is its dominant. But then in the key of G, A is the dominant of the dominant, or the secondary dominant. This cadence creates sort of a temporary modulation to that key. Which brings us to our big musical word of the day, tonicization. This means that secondary dominants emphasize a chord in such a way that it makes it feel like the tonic. Again, the 5-1 motion is very strong. In our example, A7 tonicizes D. As a side note, sometimes composers will use secondary dominants to permanently modulate to another key. But very commonly, it's just temporary, and it's used for strengthening the progression. We would label it like this, because it's the 5 of the 5. Why not just call it a major 2? Because this chord is playing a very specific function. We are borrowing a chord from the key of D, so to speak. This particular label gives us 3 pieces of information. 1, which dominant chord is being used. 2, the key that we're borrowing from and its relationship to the tonic. And 3, the chord it resolves to. Let's look at the bottom number first. Secondary dominants don't have to be related to the primary dominant. They can have a dominant relationship with any of the other chords. For example, a common secondary dominant in modern music is the 5 of 6. Sticking with our G major example, E minor is the 6th in G, and B major is the 5 in E major. That would make it the 5 chord of the 6 chord. This naming pattern is the same for every other chord in the primary key. Now the top number. This tells us which dominant chord is being used. We aren't just limited to the 5 chord. Any of the dominant chords can act as a secondary dominant. And since we can tonicize any of the other chords in the key, the possibilities are endless. Well, not endless. There are only so many chords. We could go 7-7 of 3 to 3, or maybe 5 of 2 to 2, or even 5-7 of 4 to 4, which you'll notice the last one is just a tonic chord with a 7th. Why? Because the tonic chord is the dominant chord in the subdominant key. The last piece of information tells us where the chord resolved. This is most commonly the same chord as the key we borrowed from. 5 of 5 will resolve to the 5. 5 of 3 will most likely resolve to the 3. But if the secondary dominant does not resolve to the expected chord, it's called an irregular resolution. These resolutions, I have found, are very common in actual music, but are frowned upon in your theory homework. Thanks for watching this episode of 2 Minute Music Theory. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Also be sure to check out my other channel, Jesse Strickland Music, which is home to all of my compositions. And if you're the kind of person who uses social media, be sure to connect with me over there.